Welcome to the 24th Annual Miami Jewish Film Festival, one of the world's largest and oldest Jewish cultural arts events. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Julie Jacobs, Rabbi of Beth David Congregation, and I'm excited to be moderating a virtual conversation with director Nir Bergman from the movie Here We Are, which is premiering at this year's festival. Thank you all for joining us. Hi, Nir. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. It's so wonderful to meet you. And first, before we get into all this, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for bringing this very personal story to life. My husband and I watched it together twice as parents of two children on the spectrum, one who is an adult and now living on a college campus in another state. And I can't believe to tell you how real this movie was for the both of us and how focused we are. We just can't thank you enough for bringing it to life. Before we get into details about the movie, I'd like to know a little bit more about you and where you're from and where you have lived.
Well, I'm from Haifa, Israel, born in Haifa, Israel. I lived in Haifa till I was, 13. We spent 1 year in San Diego as a family, and after that, my parents divorced, and I moved with my mom to the artist village in Hod, which is, about 20 minutes drive south of Haifa. Then I went to school. I studied film in Jerusalem. And I guess for the last sort of 30 years, I live in Tel Aviv. I'm a filmmaker. I make films. I make television as well. That's about it.
How did you decide to go into directing? Was it a particular moment in your life or something you've always wanted to do?
No, in Haifa, no one knew anything about filmmaking. It's sort of something that you know when you grow up in Tel Aviv. So I wasn't aware of the option of making films. I was thinking of being a basketball player. But then they checked my hands and they discovered that I will be short. So that was the end of that career. And actually, at high school, because I moved to an artist village, I started finding interest in arts. In high school, I studied photography. And was really attracted to photography. And then just after the army, I suddenly had the opportunity of making a video clip to my sister. She had a band, and that was it. I was sort of I fell in love with this filmmaking, with this moving picture thing. And then I went to study. I studied for 5-6 years or something like this, and then I became a film director. Yeah.
Well, you definitely are an artist, so I can see where that being an artist community also probably inspired you as well.
Thank you. They were not a big inspiration.
Not at all.
No.
Not being there at all.
No. Just like, well, never mind.
Okay.
It's a nice place to visit. It's a nice place to visit if you get to an Hod. It's very nice.
Okay.
It's on the mountains. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So why this film? Why Here We Are?
Well, Here We Are was written by the screenplay writer Dana Edisis. She's telling her personal family story. Dana's brother is on the autistic spectrum, and her father has a very special relationship with him. His name is Guy, her brother. And I think the inspiration for Dana's screenplay was a question. the question was, what will happen when my father and my brother will have to separate? She came to me with the screenplay, and for a few years, I sort of escorted the writing as a screenplay editor. It took us a few years to get the funding. In these years, while these years were passing, her brother was growing up. So when we began working on the screenplay, he was like 13, and then at the end, he was in his 20, and so the screenplay also grew up and changed while the writing was going on. And for me, I can tell you that the film is very personal to me because although I have no one on the spectrum in my family, when I became a father to twins, I held my firstborn in my hands, my boy, and he looked to me so fragile, and I felt that I have no tools how to defend him from the cruel world surrounding us. And every time I read the screenplay of Dana, I identify so strongly with the father and his wish to defend his son from the brutality of the world surrounding us. And after my boy came, 45 minutes later, my girl came to life. They're twins. And she looked to me as the strongest and readiest person for the world. Of course, this is all from it has nothing to do with reality. It's all inside your head. And I think also in Aaron's mind, he is the only one who can protect his son. But he has to come aware as the film goes on that maybe he's identifying too strongly with the boy, and maybe he needs to let go. And of course, it's harder for him because my kid is now 18 and he's very big, and we call him Big Donkey now. And he has a voice like this. And he's growing up. He's going to go soon to the army, like any other kid in Israel. And Aaron's kid is staying so vulnerable and childish. And this is why it's so hard for him to see that his kid, although he is on the spectrum, he is growing up. So this was, I guess, an answer to a part of your question.
Absolutely. No, beautiful answer. And you touched on so many things that I also picked up in the film as well, especially, those moments where maybe parents of neurotypical children aren't as aware, those nuances. Like, for example, the character of the bus driver. That particular scene was very intense for me because of the brutality of the world, but also people's opinions and what they think they know that they're offering it. And I loved Aaron's response too, which was no response, right? So can you talk to that? That is just one small moment that happens to me constantly, where there's nothing to say anymore, but everyone has an opinion, right?
And you want to shout, you want to say you don't know nothing. Actually, the film is trying to say that. It's trying to teach us as community, as people, to understand how complicated is the picture that we are watching right now, how complicated the relationship is. Mm-hmm. And I think it was very important to Dana Idisis, the screenplay writer, to have Uri not unique and genius in any way. Usually when a person, when a character in a film that deals with the autistic spectrum, the character will be like in Rain Man. He knows numbers or he knows something, and Dana really wanted to show the routine and to see and to show how hard the routine is. And also to see how big is the love. Mm-hmm. And this was our aim. And this is actually what we saw in the research. We did a very big research on the screen before we went to shoot the film to understand a lot of the relationship between parents to children on the autistic spectrum, and to understand the connection between them. And it was quite amazing. And I believe that after you see the film, if you sit in a train in front of a parent with his kid that is on the spectrum, on the autistic spectrum, you will know much more right now, and maybe you will be more sensitive, maybe less afraid, maybe less thinking that you know anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are several moments of teaching moments like that, with a popsicle, where where that salesperson wasn't even aware that this child had any kind, or this adult had any kind of disability, and took advantage of the situation, and then of course brought out that frustration that so many times have I wanted to scream, so many times have I wanted to kind of tell the whole story, but there's no way to tell it in a minute. There's no way to tell it in a moment. It's a life of redirecting, a life of rethinking. That moment when the snails, or when Uri thinks the snails, and we've had frogs in my family in that same kind of story. But that moment where Aharon gets off his bike and slowly walks. I mean, I knew that. I just don't know how, it's, I remember crawling once into a room because my son wouldn't enter the room. And if I got down on my hands and knees, he would enter the room, but he wouldn't. And so those little moments that are huge for parents on the spectrum, people really do need to understand that it's amplified, just like the amplification of the sound. Sound in this movie was tremendous for me too. Or getting off of the bus and Uri's reaction. I want to talk about that and how you incorporated that real, that feeling of or what it must feel like to be overwhelmed and sensitive in that way. And I think you did a wonderful job comparing that's almost the same feeling that Aharon had when he lost Uri in the amusement park. That kind of everything is amplified, everything is spinning, I can't focus. It almost was like an exact match for what maybe Aharon was experiencing, Uri sometimes feels.
Yeah. I'm sure we tried to have some moments of subjective sound in the film to understand exactly what you were saying. I was thinking about what you said earlier in the beginning of your question, and I was thinking about you walking down to help your kid come into the room, and I was thinking how creative and full of humor you need to be, to find solutions. It takes all your creativity and I guess all this creativity is also like every time your love becomes bigger, deeper. With every success or with every failure, this is really incredible love for me to hear what you're saying. And for the question, yes, we did try to work with subjective sound in some places in the film, and also to play with this idea of a silent movie.
Mm-hmm. I'll talk about Charlie Chaplin for sure.
Yeah, referring to Charlie Chaplin, and to try to have some sort of inspiration with the sound work between these two ideas. One idea is the subjective sound, and the other idea is the silent movie, and how the silent movie helps Uri to focus and to be in a quiet place. And in a way to build the relationship between the father and son on a little bit on this track as well, because for the kid, for Uri, the father is a little bit Charlie Chaplin from the film. So yeah, we worked on that as well. Also, you can see something that we learned from our research regarding the communication between the dominant parent in the film, the father and the son. When the first time the mother, who's less attached to raising the kid, comes into the house and she's talking to the boy and saying, "You're going to have horses, films, friends," and she's talking and talking, and the boy doesn't hear her. But when the father just says forks, he goes to bring forks, or plates, he goes to bring plates. There's like a pipe of communication between them. And these are also things that we saw in the research. The special like communication that we saw between parents and their kids on the autistic spectrum, how they are so aware of each other every moment.
Every moment. And we were taught, to say everything slowly, to be very direct, to simplify our words. I'm someone who talks a lot. And I was told by therapists that simplify it, Julie, bring it down a little bit. I listened to as much as I could. And it's so much work. Someone recently asked me if I was tired of being an autism mom. Will I ever get a break? The truth is you never get a break because you're constantly redirecting and constantly changing things for your children. By the way, I have the whole Charlie Chaplin collection because my son was obsessed with Charlie Chaplin. So that was also, as soon as the movie started, I said, here we are too. We're in this. We're in this. And very awesome. It's almost like a relief and a way for them to connect because they can relate to the silence and to the things that are right in front of them, the things that are not subjective. Of course, also the automatic doors. I mean, that must have been also a research or a conversation for you because automatic doors, security checkpoints, elevators. One time, we were in a hotel, but we had to return to that same hotel. And my son was maybe about 7 years old, but we changed rooms. So the hotel, the room number was different. And when we got to the room, it wasn't the same room number. So he wouldn't, on the floor, full out tantrum, people walking by, couldn't explain it, but it was that simple. So, we recreated the door number and put on the door and that kind of, that button to explain for him to understand. I mean, you're right. It's all about creativity. It's all about how can we make it so that they can adjust, and then how is somebody else going to be able to do what we do? And I kept feeling that with our own. With he's thinking, he's like, you can't raise them. She couldn't raise them. Who else is going to raise them? I know that I need to physically put a button. And that moment when he sees his son put that button on the door at the end of the movie, then it's like, it's also had a lot of Jewish guilt in this, right? That feeling. I don't know if that's amongst all religions, but I kind of had that feeling and the connection with Effie. And that feeling of Jewish guilt as well. When he said to her, you were good because you didn't send your mother to a facility. That must have been interesting to direct. How is that even the moment he comes into a shiva for me, that you were spectacular. How did you get that? How did you work with them in that? I mean, they're amazing actors too.
Oh, well, they are, that made it easy. The fact that they are so good. Shai is a marvelous actor. Shai Avivi, who plays Aaron. He has this, he's like an all-around player. He has it all. He could be so funny, but also ironic and cynical, and also so fragile. And so, you can see through his skin, you can see his feelings. And so I guess, it was just, taking him hand to hand and going through the film and being there for him, just to be there emotionally, strongly, each moment. With Uri, it was, of course, harder because it's very scary. I felt a lot of responsibility dealing with this character because, first of all, I really loved the screenplay, and I really loved the characters that the film is based on. Dana's father and Dana's brother. I really loved them. I really wanted to make the film to rise to the screenplay, and I was very scared about dealing with the autism spectrum on the big screen. I was afraid to make it look not real, to make it that he will feel that an actor is doing right now the part, and I really wanted someone who could really make the audience feel that this is the real thing. And Noam Imber, who's playing Uri, came to the audition. His first audition was amazing technically, and we asked him how, and we realized that Noam grew up near an autistic kids village that his father was managing, and because of his personality, he became friends with them, and one of them especially was a very good friend of him. And he sort of had his character inside him. And of course, it wasn't enough. As I said, we went on to a very big research and understanding the character and trying to find Uri behind the spectrum. Not to play the autism, but to play Uri. And that was a very big challenge as well, because I think, as we learned in our research, and as you, of course, know, each special need person is very special in its own way. And so we searched for that. I can tell you that right now, Uri, who's a very good actor, and he just finished the army where he was like in a special program for actors. Right now, he's working again with autistic people in a hostel. And he wrote to me just a few days ago, I guess a week now. He said, "I'm so proud of what we did. We did right." And I was really happy with him, with this reaction, because we were feeling a lot of responsibility doing this.
And there's also this, I don't know if it's the same in Israel, but, this almost like a pushback or a need for inclusion and for working with actors who are special needs, who are on the spectrum. And I'm curious to know, what that process was for you. Did you consider working with someone with autism, or have you before? And do you plan to maybe figure out a way?
Well, in Israel, it's not as like common as in the States, I guess. There's not a lot of people on the spectrum who are acting. Well, especially not on the autism spectrum. At least this is the way that it's right now. Maybe it's going to change. I don't know. Of course, I wish I could have, but we tried, of course. And I don't know if you know, Dana, this is a TV show on the spectrum, which she did before this film. It's an amazing TV show. So on this TV series, it's about 3 people living in one apartment. The 3 of them are on the spectrum, and they also did try and search for actors who are with special needs, but it was. It's not a common thing enough in Israel right now. So there's not enough. It wasn't really possible.
I think part of it too is there still aren't enough people who are willing to open their hearts to teaching these children how to do that. Right? It's like, as a parent, you try to find that person who will take your child in their class, or given their abilities, disabilities. And I was lucky there was someone in our lives here locally who accepted our son into a program. And because he was scripting, right, he was reciting these TV commercials, and we worked with his memory to and get him into acting. He actually was in a theater program through high school. He's not doing that now, but he worked on that, and he loved being on the stage. He was always given the same kind of role because, he ended up being this character announcer kind of actor, but it was something that we were very grateful for. So I'm hopeful that people do start, maybe by watching your film, can understand that there absolutely are places or things and qualities and gifts that these kids have where they can be in an environment to learn how to do that.
Yeah, there are a few theater groups in Israel for special needs, but very little on the autistic spectrum. Very little. Most of them are different special needs, and of course, in this film, it's very, very specific. The autism spectrum. So it was really, we didn't really have an option.
It's a hard role to act and to play
Oh yes, yeah.
Sure. I did want to talk about the divorce rate as well. I'm curious to know, divorce rate of parents that I'm aware is very high of kids on the spectrum. Very high. We're talking maybe above 70% or so. Is this, it's because parents often don't know how to, parent together, and let alone parenting a typical child to parent together a child with these needs. I'm fascinated by the fact that the father was the one who, in her story, who was connected. In terms of research, did you find that often it was the father, or is this a rare circumstance?
I think it's the rare circumstances. Yeah. I think I would say, luckily enough, in Dana's family, first of all, the parents are together till now. But luckily for us, Dana's father was the one who's totally devoting his life for her brother. And that made it more special in our film, because if it was the mother, it was, I guess, especially in Israel, it would be like, I would say the usual circumstances. And this is special circumstances, and I think it's more unique and better for the film. And also for me, I'm lucky because my identification with the role of the father, as I talked a little bit before about my firstborn, was stronger and deeper, because it's the role for me, it's the role of my life, being a father.
Yeah. It was spectacular, and you can feel that sensitivity. And I think it also allows fathers to understand that they can play this role, that they can be connected to their child if they know what to look for and how, and not to, shy away from but possible connection. And it's truly, truly amazing. And I'm just in awe of what you were able to do. Would you, do you have an interest in doing more films about the special needs community?
Well, I guess, first of all, I'm always attracted to where things are, to where the family drama is, because of my personal life. This is what is like I would say, I don't know, my bread and butter relationship inside the family. So I cannot tell you that I have my next project in the same area, but there is something that is like not far away from this. I'm working on a new project. One of my new projects is about a relationship between a father and daughter, and the daughter is I don't know how to say this word, is being attacked by bipolar 1 at 15. It's based on the memoirs of Michael Greenberg. It's called Hurry Down Sunshine. He's an American author. and writer and newspaper writer. So this is one of the projects that I'm dealing with right now, who's connected in different ways, but it's also about relationships and about, you know, difficulties that we go through life. But there's nothing that is specifically regarding special needs right now.
I do hope that you continue, though, to take those moments that people feel are mundane or small or meaningless and emphasizing the meaning and the miracle. And we're constantly always waiting for the big thing to happen, right? We celebrate these miracles and we get to these moments and we think that's what is, the miracle. But then that simple push of an imaginary button is the miracle, or it's that that eye contact for a brief second, or it's seeing, your child enjoy a moment of dancing that is authentic and pure, and that is what the miracle is. And for you to continue to do your magic and I can feel your soul in those moments. When you told me the story, even of holding your twin, and my twins were an hour and a half apart, so I also understand the 45-minute, break you had there. But those, those moments where you find and people overlook them constantly. They're seeking something that's supposed to shake them, and if it's that moment of a child saying goodbye, mom, or we're doing something and that you've left an imprint on them and they are okay, and or there's somebody who will be there for them. I mean, all those things are miracles and they're huge. And where do you go? And you're like, how do you do that? How do you communicate with another person and kind of they work with them so that they can feel what you're feeling? I mean, it's pretty, I don't know what the tools are. How do you, from the pulpit, I know how to inspire people in a certain way, but it's as a director, where does it come from?
I'm not sure that I understood the question. I understood. I think I lost you at the ending of the questions, and I didn't get it exactly. So I don't want to answer something else. So
how do you get from where you're saying it's a personal story for you?
Yeah.
How do you convey to the actor? How do you get what you're trying to say to them? What are the techniques you use, or those?
Well, first of all, first of all, it's choosing the actors. Choosing the person who has this in him, and then it's guiding him to the right feeling. For instance, with the father Shai, the main thing was to understand, to teach him how urgent this thing is for him. This is a matter of life and death for him. That he will be the one who's taking care of Uri. So maybe Shai had some cynical parts in his acting, in his personality, that to reduce them, but also it's something that came with choosing him, and it's something that happened to him from the screenplay, and something that happened to them when they met. The moment they met on in front of the camera, it was like a father and son relationship. So this is like also the magic of cinema, and these two people are big-hearted, and therefore, I was just there to guide them and to be there for them, and a lot of the relationship came from them.
The moment at the end, and we'll finish up in a minute. But the moment that at the end where Haron realizes that his kid is going to be okay. It was. That's, I think, at a time the tears were released. Was that a difficult scene to help him with?
No, the main thing was to shoot it at the end. It was, I guess, one of the last days of shooting for both of them. So they were really inside. They were really inside the characters so strongly, because the first 3 days, it's like a soup. It's like a soup that needs to be like with all the materials a little bit more just to stay. So the characters is the same. The first 3 shooting days, it's like the tastes are being built, but then at the ending of the shooting, they're so ready. They went through the whole film. It wasn't hard for me to for Shai. For Uri, we used a little bit of the research when we were doing the research. When we were doing location scouting in the south of Israel, in Elat, where there are the dancing scenes and everything. We were location scouting there, and we suddenly saw, Elat is like tourist city. And suddenly we saw the story in front of our eyes. It was a single mom and her boy. He was about 16. They were having like a hamburger or something, and on vacation. And a vacation with your son who's on the autistic spectrum, and they actually had the same story with the numbers on the room. That was crazy. I remember the number. It was 404, and it was changed, and he couldn't go inside the room. So, anyways, we approached them and asked them if they could be part of our research, and we started visiting them. Uri, Noam plays Uri, and Shai and me. We started visiting them and understanding and learning about their relationship, and we are still connected till today. We WhatsApp, and I cannot tell you the boy's name because the mother didn't want no one to know about them anyways, and that's a different story that we won't go to. But at the ending scene, I asked Noam to think about them separating when they separate, but still to stay in the character, and that helped him to understand this moment for him. It was a very special moment. I won't. They haven't seen the film yet because of the corona, but we're waiting to show them the film.
Beautiful.
Especially the mom. I don't know if she'll want her son to see. We'll see.
It's so hard to know. It's so hard to know what, as a parent. Anyway, we don't get a book. What's right? What's not right? What am I doing wrong? How am I doing this? The whole feeling also in the movie of doubt, of the doubt. Of
dilemmas,
pride, dilemmas. I mean, that feeling of you're giving me the chance to say what's right for my son after all these years. That scene, and still that I felt that feeling. But what if I don't know if this is the right answer? Even though this is what I'm doing, it was a constant throughout the traveling, those decisions, those moments. It was.
I know. We try to make it like the ending of the film, I guess, is what we call a good feel ending. But I know the dilemmas in life are harder than the film, and I know that there's not a good answer. So I can identify with everything that you're saying, because the dilemmas are so hard, extremely hard, and you really don't know. That mother I was telling you about, she had a lot of problem with the social workers. Each time they want to take the kid to an institute, and she doesn't let them. She comes with these files, and she showed us the files to show them, to make them understand that it's better for him to stay home, to be in sort of regular school, and to so yeah, it's extremely hard. He doesn't know yet that he's on the spectrum. She's afraid of the moment that he will need to understand. He wants to go to the army. Yeah. You know the whole story. You know it by heart.
I want to buy a car. I want to do this, and everything has to be at a certain time. And I am fully capable of doing anything in the world. And it's almost like an altered sense of self. But but you have to kind of figure out, what they can do and not hold them back. And that's kind of, is this the time? Is this the time? It's this constant struggle. It really is. I do want to thank you for, also not stereotyping. I didn't feel it was stereotyped. You did a really wonderful job at pulling Uri out. I can't tell you so many times I'm going, is your son like Rain Man? Or, and I have one who is a savant and one who has learning disabilities. So they're completely different children. But those stereotypes, no, this is my son. He is not a stereotype. And so I really feel that you did. I can see how hard it worked, and I appreciate that. And it was really beautifully done. And if there was anything that you could tell the audience maybe today that you would hope that they would get from your film, what would that be, or what would their message be for them?
Well, I just hope that that they will see it and tell their friends to see it also. That's like the best. I hope that they find it. The film is actually it's a very small film, and there's not a lot of films nowadays that are small films based on characters, relationships, and if there's a place in people's heart for this sort of film, that's I guess that makes us happy, and of course. As I said before, next time you go inside a train and you see people that are on the autistic spectrum or on any special needs, with any special needs, please, understand how complicated this picture how complicated the situation that you're watching right now is, and understand that there's a lot behind a boy on the tantrum outside of a train. It could be the number of the hotel room, as you said. Maybe be less scared and less judgmental, and know a little bit about how hard the dilemmas are, and of course, as I said before, how big is the love. This is, the first and biggest lesson for me, is how big is the love. Yeah.
Well, it was truly big in your movie. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you, Director Nir Bergman, for
thank you so much, Rabbi Julie Jacobs. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm inspired. I will see more of your films for sure. I look forward to things that you do in the future, and for bringing out the relationships, because the world right now, what we need is love and understanding, and to focus on one another, and to
absolutely
be open to hearing everything, and being there for people. Like saying here we are is really the message for me as well. We should be for everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. And once again, I want to thank all of our members. Thank you, the sponsors, the community partners, volunteers, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, for their continued support throughout all these years. And thank you, our audience, for participating in the 24th Annual Miami Jewish Film Festival.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good.